Good evening, everyone. This is Thomas, and this is Cooking with Thomas, and we are going to make some chicken pizzaiola and sauce. And this is our chicken, which I'm prepping right now, getting all the extra little fat off of it. So with this piece, I'm actually going to have, my knives aren't that sharp, so we're going to switch knives. We're going to have it. And then we are also going to get a little bit of this fat off. And we're going to have it, or fillet it, if I can get it right. And the reason why we're doing that is because we want our pieces thinner than normal. We've tried this a couple times throughout the week as test runs to get it right, and unfortunately, the thicker the piece, the harder it is to cook through, and it doesn't turn out right, and it causes the whole dish to mess up. Okay. Normally I would have all my ingredients pre-prepped already, but because we're doing this all at once, figured make our lives easier. So some of these pieces are a little bit thinner than others, but we should be okay on that front. So we're going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. A little bit of salt. Pepper. Little trick. Oh, that is not a little trick. Take your pepper and grind. So this might be a little bit saltier than I was hoping for, but perfect. Alright. Now normally we take our medium pan, put it on heat. We don't need a cover. We'd add some olive oil in there, and then we are going to fresh extra virgin olive oil. Hasn't even been opened yet. Make sure to throw that out later. Coat the pan. Put it on medium heat. Let it heat up, and while that's doing that, we're going to chop some onions. So we're going to take the knife we just used. If this was a kitchen, you'd want to clean your knife because you don't want to cause contamination by any stretch. But this is my home kitchen. So I don't work for a kitchen. We are going to peel our onion. If you noticed, I did a little trick there with the knife. I actually tried to find a section that was already cut or peeling off, and I used the knife to flick it. Sometimes you can get fortunate and do that. Sometimes you have to make your own. In this circumstance, we're not, so we're gonna cut it anyway. So with that, see how it gives that flake. So we don't want to go too thick. Otherwise you start digging into the good part of the onion. So, like I said, normally this is pre-prepped, but everybody should learn how to peel an onion. Right? It's important. So, unfortunately with onions, this is their skin. That's what this is that we're peeling. Of course, you know, it doesn't want to let it go. See? and then we start taking out the good stuff. So if you noticed, I actually haven't done anything to the onion itself, but my eyes aren't watering. Because you can cut the edge of the onion, as long as you don't cut it 100%, you won't have to worry about the enzymes and everything, right? So we're going to stir this around a little bit more, because this should be warm enough now. And we're going to sear on each side the chicken for 1 minute. Okay. In the meantime, we're going to finish this onion up. You only need about half an onion. Save the rest for later. Again, we're going to finish peeling it just because of the flesh, and then we're going to chop it. Right? Again, we don't want to go too far, otherwise we ruin the onion. We're going to have it, essentially quarter it. Now, the recipe asks for thin strips. So the easiest way to do thin strips is to go with the grain. But because I don't want the cork, I go against the grain and still get thinner strips, but I didn't go all the way through. Right? But I'll do it on the other side so you can see. Right? So again, go against the grain, go all the way through, and voila. Okay, so it's beeping. Give it a minute. Okay, so now we have our onion. Make sure it's all nice and separated as I make a mess. Make sure you get all the bad parts out. Now, because I didn't pre-prep this, my eyes are going to start watering because of the enzymes and the onion. Remember, wash your hands. So now, we need garlic. Where's the mason jar that we use? Is it in here?
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So it's been a minute. We're going to take the chicken out of the pan. We're going to then add the onions. We're going to lower the heat just by a little bit because my pan is probably too hot. Set it for about 5 minutes. We're going to add, it's supposed to be a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil, but in this circumstance, we're going to do a little bit more because we're going to add a little bit more ingredients to it. We're going to take our garlic. We only need 5 cloves, right? So again, this is much easier if you have it already pre-prepped. Seeing as how we don't, we're going to show you how it's done. Now this might take a little bit, but this is actually the easiest way to do it. There's plenty of YouTube videos and things like that, but just to show you that it actually does work. we should have our 5 clovers. Right? 4 and 5. We'll filter out the rest in a little bit to get the remainder, but for now, we just need 5. Make sure there's no additional wrapping on there, because otherwise your garlic isn't really garlic. Now you could pretty much do it all the way through, and it will take these little flesh of skins off, or the peel, but I want to make sure that dang it, I'm having some difficulty. Let's see. There we go. Perfect. Garlic is garlic. Garlic is garlic. And garlic is garlic. Again, like I said, it's actually much easier if you do it in the jar, so that way you don't have to worry about doing this, but because I need to chop it up fairly quickly here in a few seconds and get it into this pan, I need to make sure. So that's what I'm doing. And then the rest will go back in to said mason jar. And then we are going to chop some garlic. Don't forget your handy dandy spatula. Now, essentially all we're trying to really do is make the onions a little bit so we're going to cut these into thin slices. Take the edges off. A lot of times you can probably use the edges because it's not that finite, but what we really want to do is make sure that it actually is thin slices, so that way you're not getting this nice big chunk of garlic in your mouth when you eat it. It's just a nice little flavoring. Alright. Oh. Apparently I didn't clean that one all the way through. And that's the other reason why you want to make sure it's cleaned all the way through, because when you go to cut it, normally you wouldn't take it off the heat like that, but because I need to peel this garlic, well, we're not going to worry about it. We'll take care of it later. Alright, so remember, thin, it's a little too thick. And watch your fingers. Don't chop your fingers off, please. Knife safety. If you don't know about knife safety, watch some YouTube videos. There's probably plenty of them. You know, You don't want to chop your finger off. My camera person isn't showing, so I must be boring. Okay. We're going to add garlic. We're going to then add tomatoes in a few minutes. Normally we would do olives in this as well, but we didn't get olives. So you can add olives. Now this actually asks for wedges. So a wedge is that. That's a wedge, right? The reason why I'm chopping these a little bit smaller is because I want it to cook a little bit quicker. And also because there's no reason why you can't make it smaller. So I do need sharper knives, just so that way I can cut through the skin of the tomatoes easier. But it's not that big of a deal. Like I said, just be conscientious of your fingers. Make sure everything's good. Now, we add the tomatoes. We take a little bit of salt. A little bit of pepper. For taste. Now about another 5 minutes or so. When the tomatoes start becoming softer and start breaking apart, we add a cup tomato sauce. You actually want to use your own tomato sauce, like just tomato sauce, because then it won't change the flavor. But because we have some of this stuff left over, we're going to finish it up, so that way it's all good, because waste not, want not. So the tomatoes are almost done. You can see them starting to break down a little bit. Essentially what we're looking for is that this peel is coming off and that the tomato itself is sort of, like I said, breaking down. It's very easy to see, right? Once that tomato starts breaking down more, the peel starts coming off, it starts separating from itself. Then we're going to take the tomato sauce, add it to this, and then we're going to do a nice slow, steady boil. And then we're also going to pre-prep the oven to broil. And the reason why is because we're going to then cover this with some cheese. I think we're good. I think everything should be good. add 1 cup tomato sauce. So now, you see how certain sections are already starting to simmer with the tomato sauce in there? We want all of it to do a nice boil as we make a mess, right? We don't all want it centralized because then it won't have even heat. Sort of want to move it around and get that separation. Okay, it's going to take a few minutes for it to boil. Then we're going to let it simmer. And then we're going to add the chicken back in. Alright, so you can see now that the sauce is starting to boil, and we actually want it to simmer like that, and now we're going to re-add the chicken, right? So you can see the objective is to make sure the chicken is finished cooking. So you see how it's got that nice raw edging. We're essentially trying to finish the cooking process, right? So we're going to keep it on a low heat. We're going to give it about we'll give it 6 minutes, you know, so that way it's cooked all the way through. And then you actually need a oven safe frying pan, which I don't have, right? Because obviously rubber and oven melt, hot, bad. So I'm going to use this crock pot. I'm going to then put the chicken in here. I'm going to cover it with cheeses, and then I'm going to put it in the oven in the broiler for about 3 minutes or so to melt the chicken, make it all gooey, give it a nice crisp edge, and then voila. So alright, so I did cover this for a little bit just to try and keep the heat in there, so that way cook it through a little bit more. I'm going to take it off of the heat, turn that off because it's been about 6 minutes. Now I'm going to check the internal, so I'm going to go straight in the center, trying to get as much as I can. You don't want to go too far down because otherwise you might catch the bottom of the pan. So we want this to be around 165, 170, closer to 180 as humanly possible, right? So obviously if it's not even close to that, we need to cook it more. So I'm pretty much in the center. We're sitting about 100. So because it's so low, if you look, it's sitting at about 100, we are then going to turn around and make sure I was in there all the way, which I was pretty much in there. Like I said, I don't want to go through the chicken because we don't want to be at the bottom of the pan. And yeah, so it's at 100. We are not going to put it into the oven just yet. We're going to give it a little bit more temperature. I'm going to check some of the other pieces just to be on the safe side because the smaller ones might have a better temperature reading than the thicker one. Obviously we want the thicker piece because if that one's not cooked, that's an issue. And it doesn't even look like any of these are above 100. So that's not good, that's not edible. We can't serve that. Right? All the big name chefs would be very, 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 very upset. So, and we don't want Fabio Fabio Viviani upset with us because this is his dish and his recipe. So, alright, so with that, we're going to let it sit there, simmer, and wait for it to cook a little bit more through before we go on to the next phase. Alright, so we're pretty much on that finishing off. We're gonna let it cook a little bit more inside of the oven where it's completely cooked through. We're getting all of the sauce inside of the dish. Try and put the piece of the chicken together. Make sure you get all the nice sauce, because that's obviously the good part. Put this in the sink. Now, this is the tricky part. How much cheese do you like? Cheese. Of course, now I can't find much cheese. Oh, there it is. Aha! Found it. Mozzarella. Or as us Americans like to say, mozzarella. All right. So we want to cover this. We're gonna coat it. Oh, too much cheese, said no one ever. But honestly, you don't need that much cheese. Right? You don't need that much cheese. Now, if you're wondering what's boiling in the background, that is the spaghetti that will serve underneath it. So essentially, to make spaghetti, boil water. Once it's boiled, take your spaghetti, thin noodle, or whatever, break it in half. Make sure you break it in half. You don't have to put the whole thing in there. Once it boils, let it just boil. Take out a piece. It's too crispy. Way too crispy. So we're gonna let it sit. Alright. Now, for the creme de la creme, we're gonna coat it with the rest of this Parmesan cheese that I have to give it a nice mixture of flavoring. Get your oven mitts out. Make sure, because you don't want to burn yourself. Put it in the oven. We're going to put it in there for 2 minutes. And then that should be it. Alright. So obviously I made this recipe a couple different times. I'm still trying to fine tune it because it is a little bit difficult with the chicken. Obviously the better you know your stove, the easier it becomes. Make sure you clean up after your mess, which I'm doing. Meat thermometers are very, very important because obviously you don't want people to get sick if you're trying to show off your cooking skills and things like that. If you haven't already, please follow the YouTube page. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, you can check me out on Instagram with Cooking with Thomas. I'll throw a link up in the description as well. Remember, hit the buttons, like, dislike, whatever. Let us know how you think. Let us know what you think of the recipes. If there's something specific that you want to have cooked, I would be more than happy to. But in the meantime, this is what our recipe we want to look like because this is what we are imitating. So we're going to try and cook all of these recipes in here so that way we can get better with our Italian cooking and be happy. So this is the objective. Alrighty. Now let's check out said just desserts. Look at that, I already burned it. Brand new and I already crisped it. 30 more seconds. Alrighty. So, c'est magnifique. So that is what we want it to look like. turn off all of our stuff. We're going to guess where a piece of chicken is and let it do its thing. Getting closer. $120. Is it going past 120? It is. So I think we're okay, because remember, after you take it out, it settles for a little bit. It'll still cook through, so I'm going to cut a piece open, see how it looks, make sure I actually hit a chicken breast, because obviously it's covered in cheese, which it looks like I did. But I think we'll be okay. We really do want it to be around the 165, 170 mark, just for safety reasons. So I'm going to cut a piece open, see, make sure, and then go from there. But with that being said, this is the dinner, and look forward to seeing you guys next time.